Okay, welcome back from your break, everyone. I'm going to share this topic of identifying cravings, cultivating non-craving, and analysis of the mind. This is where you're going to learn to go in and surgically remove your cravings, desires, attachments. But first, I'm going to teach you how to identify them. And then as part of this talk, we're going to do a little bit of a interactive period of time where I'll look to you guys to put together what it is that I'm teaching you. Those of you guys here at the temple and those of you guys online, you can all participate in this activity that I'm going to do as part of this talk. So first, let me help you guys understand what it is that I'm sharing with you. Here, the first thing is, let's understand what a craving, desire, attachment is, because depending on if somebody studied with me before or not, they may not know this. There's people online that maybe this is the first time studying with me. Maybe there's people here that you just learned this yesterday. So a good little refresher of what a craving, desire, attachment is really helpful. This is the wants, the expectations, the grasping, the holding, the clinging. This is the mental longing for something with the strong eagerness, chasing after the objects of your affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. This is the mind longing, yearning for something. The craving, desire, attachment, the wants, the expectations, the grasping, the clinging, the holding, this is the cause of discontentedness. All those discontent feelings, whether they're conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, that's what's causing these discontent feelings. And remember, those conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a problem as the painful feelings. Oftentimes we think the goal in life is to be happy or be excited. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be plenty happy. You'll be happy all the time. You'll be joyful all the time. But what we're looking to eliminate is the conditional happiness, that the mind can only be happy if certain conditions are met. So if your bank account is this, then I'll be happy. But then when the bank account goes here, you're sad. Or if your mom does this, you're happy. But if she does this over here, you're sad or angry or frustrated. You're looking to eliminate the conditional experiences of the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. So the pleasant feelings are happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are conditioned feelings, all caused by craving. So for example, if your mom calls you up and says, "Hey, I just heard you got a new house. I would love to come see you this weekend and spend some time at your new house. You can show me all around and we can spend some time together looking at your new house." You might be, "Yay, Mom, this will be so exciting. Yes, can't wait for you to come. Oh, this is going to be so great. Yes, 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 yes. Can't wait for you to come." All right, you're getting so excited based on the condition that Mom is coming to see you. This is conditional happiness. But now on Friday night, Mom calls and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't come this weekend. Something has come up and I'm not able to come." Now you're going to feel sad. You're going to feel maybe angry or frustrated, right? Maybe you might become unskillful now talking to your mom. Maybe you be bitter and harsh and hostile towards her because you're perceiving this painful feeling that's arising as coming from your mom, when in reality it was your craving. That on Tuesday when she called you and told you she was coming, you got so excited. You got that conditional happiness, excitement. And now when she calls you on Friday and tells you she can't come, now you're going to experience that sadness or that frustration. And if you don't understand craving, desire, attachment, you're going to falsely attribute this to mom. And now you might be bitter and harsh and hostile. You might damage your relationship. So it's this craving, desire, attachment that is causing this problem of discontentedness in the unenlightened mind. This is the first of the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. We talked about craving, anger, and ignorance yesterday, or greed, hatred, and delusion, that unknowing of true reality. The Four Noble Truths explains craving, desire, attachment as the cause of discontentedness in the mind. And the remedy to this in general is over time, gradually, consistently training the mind with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. That's what's generally going to wear away this craving, desire, attachment. But it's working more in a general sense, because with craving, desire, attachment, the mind's holding on. It can oftentimes be very selfish. It doesn't want to let go. I want mom to come see me. She can't go anywhere else. She needs to come see me. I want her here. This is the mind holding on. The mind's not willing to let go. So the breathing mindfulness meditation, when you're focused on the breath and the mind's moving off the breath, you're training the mind to let go and come back. let go, and come back. So 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation, if you're having to train the mind to let go, wonderful. That's wonderful. Let go. And then when you're practicing generosity, when you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation, without any expectation of anything in return, this is training your mind to let go as well. You're sharing your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. This is generalized training, and you would like to be doing these things daily. The Buddha talks about this in his teachings, to practice generosity daily, to practice moral conduct daily, that's right speech, right action, and right livelihood, and to practice meditation daily. On a day-to-day basis, you'll need to be practicing generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. That's your consistent ongoing training. So this is going to help you to gradually soften up the mind and be willing to allow it to let go. You're also going to be cultivating that mindfulness or awareness of mind. What craving, desire, attachment is it's all these things that we just described, but it's also the fuel that causes rebirth. These are the exact words of the Buddha. Just like you have a fire, if it has logs on the fire, this is the fuel for the fire. And now, as long as there's fuel on the fire, it's going to send off sparks, and these sparks are going to land and they're going to light a new fire. Because the fire has fuel, it's going to send off sparks and ignite a new fire. The same thing is true as if your mind has fuel at the end of this life, it's going to ignite a new consciousness. It's going to produce a new life. And you can independently verify this if you decide to get into really truly understanding the cycle of rebirth. You can actually see this for yourself, because think about that craving. Whenever you have that anger and the bitterness and hostility, you ever feel that heat in your face come up, or that pressure in your skull? That's the fire burning. That's the craving, the desire, the attachment, the longing, the yearning. That's what you're looking to eliminate on this path, because that's what's producing all these discontent feelings. Whether it's the pleasant feelings of so excited you got what you want, it's from craving, desire, attachment. The painful feelings, the sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, it's all coming from craving, desire, attachment. Even those neither painful nor pleasant feelings, like shyness, right? Or that example that I usually give where you're on public transportation and someone comes, sits next to you, and your body's touching their body. Even that little dissatisfaction in the mind, that little ickiness, it's being caused by craving, desire, attachment. The mind is craving something. It's wanting something, and it's not getting what it wants. It wants to sit in the seat without having your body touch their body. Right? And this is all this discontentedness, all this dissatisfaction. It's being caused by this craving, desire, attachment. So the goal is to eliminate these cravings, desires, attachments from the mind. And you'll need that breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity to gradually do that. But then you're going to need what I'm going to share with you here in a moment. So the number one goal in the path to enlightenment is to eliminate discontentedness. And to eliminate discontentedness, you need to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment, because that's what's causing it. But how could you ever eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments if you didn't know how to identify them? If you didn't know how to identify what is your craving? When that person is sitting next to you and your body's touching their body, all you feel is discontent. You just feel dissatisfaction. You don't necessarily know what is the craving exactly, right? Or if mom calls me up and says she can't come and she can't see me in my new house, and you get angry, what is your craving? What exactly are you craving? That's what I'm going to help you be able to identify. So identifying your cravings, desires, attachments, it's the second most important skill that you could develop next to meditation. Meditation is the first thing. That's the skill or the ability or the tool or the technique. You need that on board. That's a priority. That's a primary thing that you're developing. But the second most important skill that you could ever develop is to be able to identify your attachments, because how could you ever eliminate them if you couldn't identify them? So a teacher can help you learn how to do this, but then you're going to be out there someday without your teacher, right? You're going to need to have this skill to be able to develop the ability to identify your attachments. So that's why I teach this to you. So breathing, mindfulness, meditation is training the mind to let go, eliminating the craving, desire, attachment in general. But through identifying your cravings, through practicing that right mindfulness or awareness of mind, and then actively applying right effort outside of meditation is what's going to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. You need to be able to see in the moment when you're noticing this Anger arising, when you're noticing this frustration, this agitation, this stress, this anxiety, when you're noticing that arise, you need to have mindfulness or awareness of mind to be able to cut that off and let it go. And then later, you need to be introspective to look inward with your mindfulness and awareness of mind and apply right effort to eliminate this from the mind. You're going to need that skill. You're going to need that ability to figure this out. This is part of the mental discipline section of practicing right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration from the Eightfold Path, all culminating into the benefits and resulting in the elimination of craving, desire, attachment to produce that peacefulness, that calmness, that serenity, that contentedness and joy. Here is a perfect example as I teach to you what I'm about to teach you, where you can see getting to enlightenment is not just meditation. You can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. That's an important component, but there's other aspects of your practice that you'll need outside of meditation to actually produce the enlightened mind. So this is the reason why it's important to learn how to identify your cravings. So when you get discontent, any kind of discontentedness that is arising, this is like a red light on the dashboard of your car. This is alerting you, hey, something's wrong. If you see a red light on the dashboard of your car, what are you going to do? You're probably going to pull over. Right? You're going to pull over. And if you've got a little bit of skills, you're probably going to pop open the hood and you're going to start looking around and see if you can figure out what's wrong with this. But if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have that skill, you're going to take your car to the mechanic and let the mechanic help you to figure out what's wrong and potentially fix it. Right? So that red light on the dashboard of your car is alerting you, hey, something's wrong. Pull over. Check this out, investigate it, and get some help from a mechanic if you need to. So the discontentedness that you experience is exactly the same way. Those discontent feelings, the anger, the sadness, the frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, shyness, embarrassment, the boredom, the loneliness, the resentfulness, even those conditioned pleasant feelings of happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. This is the red light on your dashboard. It's flashing. It's saying, hey, you got a problem. You've got some craving, desire, attachment somewhere. Well, what you like to do is pull over. You'd like to step back and you start to look inward. You start to be introspective and reflective and try to figure out, what is your mind craving? What are you longing and yearning for? Right? And then where you need help, you take your mind to the mechanic. Who's the mechanic in this scenario? Your teacher. If you don't know what your cravings, desires, attachments are, you might need to come see your teacher or call your teacher or send your teacher an email or message your teacher or post in the Facebook group or ask a question in class. Hey, teacher, I've been really angry the last 3 days and I don't understand why. We'll start asking you questions and to be able to help you to uncover it. Once we do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you'll probably build the skill enough that you'll be able to do this on your own. But I've even had students sometimes after studying with me for a year or two, they'll contact me and they'll say, hey, I've got this issue and I need help with it. Can you help me? Here's what I'm experiencing, but I can't figure out what my cravings are. So slowly but surely, you'll be able to develop the skill to identify your cravings. In some cases, you'll contact me and you'll say, hey, I'm discontent and I don't know why. Can you help me? In other cases, you'll say, hey, I'm discontent. I think these are the cravings, desires, attachments, but I'm not sure. Can you help me and confirm for me whether this is actually true or not? And in other cases, you might be pretty sure that you figured it out, but you'd like to just verify to see if there's any cravings, desires, attachments that you're missing, that you've overlooked. Because the unenlightened mind being polluted, sometimes you don't look at the mind objectively. Sometimes you can't see with clarity 100% of what's going on in your mind. So that's where you can reach out to your mechanic. Your teacher is your mechanic. So use this discontentedness as the red light on the dashboard of your car, alerting you that there's cravings, desires, attachments in the mind. So now I'm going to walk you through a scenario and teach you how to accomplish what it is that I'm describing to you and what you're going to ultimately be able to do to surgically remove these cravings, desires, attachments. And then after I teach this to you, I'm going to invite you to use an example from your life and walk through this so that you can start building this skill. So the first thing, whenever discontentedness occurs, cut it off and let it go. Whether it's those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. You're trying to get better and better at noticing those as a bodily sensation. Right now, depending on where you are in your practice, you might not be noticing those bodily sensations. But as you develop your breathing mindfulness meditation and your generosity more, you'll start noticing those bodily sensations. That's the early warning system. That's the red light on the dashboard of your car, telling you, hey, you're about to get angry, you're about to get frustrated, you're about to get shy, you're about to get bored or lonely. You're going to notice some bodily sensations. Even those pleasant feelings, the happiness, excitement, elation, the conditional pleasant feelings, you'll notice that there's bodily sensations there too. So without even contemplating or reflecting or anything, whenever you're noticing discontentedness arise, cut it off, cut it off, cut it off. That's not the time to reflect yet. You're just cutting it off. What you're doing is you're working to not allow the mind to get that conditioned feeling. Because as soon as the mind is experiencing some contact from the outside world, and now there's a craving in the mind's going to want to form this conditioned feeling. Look at that bank statement. My bank account balance is exactly where I want it to be. I want to get so happy. The mind is wired to be happy in that situation because it's got that craving, and now it gets a conditioned feeling, right? Oh, my mom's calling me. Oh, I crave for my mom to call me. I really like it when my mom calls me. I'm so happy. The mind gets this conditioned feeling, right? Oh, my bank account balance went down. Oh, I'm sad. The mind experiences this conditioned feeling. So when you notice those bodily sensations coming up and the mind's wanting to create that conditioned feeling, it hasn't created it yet. It's just noticing, it's alerting you, hey, you're about to create a conditioned feeling. That's what that bodily sensation is. And you say, nope, I'm not going to let you have that conditioned feeling. And more as you cut that off and cut that off and cut that off and cut that off, the mind's not going to form these conditioned feelings. So once you cut off this arising of discontentedness as a bodily sensation, or sometimes it's going to become a feeling, because right now you don't have full control of your mind. It's going to sometimes become a feeling. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get annoyed. Cut that off at the feelings. Or you might miss it as a feeling, and you might notice for a couple of hours or a couple of days you're kind of agitated. That's the condition of the mind. Cut that off, right? And once you cut it off and you've let it go and your mind is calm, it might be a few hours, it might be a few days, it might be a week or so. That's where you move to the second step. Now you reflect on the cravings, desires, attachments that led to those discontent feelings arising. What was it? You look inward. Now that your mind's calm, you've already cut it off. It might be a day or two, an hour or two, a week or two. Now you look inward. What was it that I was craving? What did I really want? What was the mind longing, yearning for? There was some permanence that you were craving. What was it? And now that's what you're doing in the second step, is you're developing this ability to identify your own cravings, desires, attachments. Now, once you have identified your craving, desire, attachment, you move to step number 3. Develop a plan to eliminate the specific cravings, desires, attachments that cause the discontent feelings to arise while maintaining a consistent practice of breathing mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. So you're going to keep with the breathing mindfulness, meditation, and generosity, but now you're going to implement a specific plan to expose the mind to what it doesn't want. I'm going to show you an example of this, and then we'll talk about it with your examples too. So whenever you identify what your cravings, desires, attachments are, then you put together a plan to eliminate that from the mind. You're going to keep with your breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity as generalized ongoing training, but then you need to do this little plan that I'm talking about to be able to surgically remove the craving, desire, attachment. And then as you do that, the fourth one is repeat. Anytime that you experience an incident of discontentedness arising in the mind, if you need to seek guidance with the teacher as needed, you do that, but you repeat this over and over and over and over again for each individual craving, desire, attachment, each incident of discontentedness. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through a scenario that I experienced this, right? And I did this many times, what I'm describing to you here. But I'll walk you through a couple of them on my own life, and then I'll invite you to do the same thing so you can build this skill and this ability. So the first step, When discontentedness arises, cut off and let go of the condition. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings are neither painful nor pleasant. So one day I left my house and I was leaving. And as I left, I was driving in my wife's truck and I reached for my mobile phone and I realized I didn't have my mobile phone. And I noticed this fear arise in the mind. And right away, I cut it off. I cut it off. I cut it off. I cut it off. And I was at the point at that time that I could cut it off and it was gone within, a few seconds. Okay. Then I was at a stoplight. So I was at a stoplight. So I was able to think. I was able to look inward. I was like, what am I craving here? Why is this fear risen up in my mind? So I moved to the second step. Why is this fear in my mind? What is going on? And when I looked inside, I was like, the mind's craving that mobile phone to be permanent. It wants this mobile phone to be permanent. I'm having this longing, yearning for the mobile phone. So initially my mind was like, I should turn around and go get the phone. That's what my mind wanted to do. But understanding the path to enlightenment, I knew that wasn't going to solve the problem. Going back home to get the phone was just trying to satisfy the craving because the mind wanted this phone to be permanent. So instead, I moved to step number 3. And I developed a plan for how to expose the mind to what it didn't want. So I was supposed to be outside for an hour and a half that day, and I was going to be outside without my phone. And I decided rather than turn around and go home, the mind wants the phone with me at all times. I'm going to train the mind to go out into the world without the phone because the mind doesn't feel comfortable being in the world without its phone. So let me train the mind to go out into the world without the phone and maintain its contentedness and joy. So even though I was only planning to be outside for an hour and a half that day, I extended my time. I did the things that I needed that were an hour and a half long, but then I went to the movies, I went to dinner, I took time. I was outside for like 5 or 6 hours, and I spent my time outside without this phone. And then when I came home, I didn't just run and go get the phone. I went and did other things at home when I came home. I came home and I did some other things. I, watched a little TV, I think, or, got on the internet or whatever I did, maybe ate some food. I'm not sure. Right. So I did some different things. And then eventually I picked up the phone and I was like, okay, here's the phone. Right. But then realizing that my mind had this craving and it didn't feel comfortable being outside alone. 2 or 3 days later, I did exactly the same thing. This time I intentionally left the phone at home, training the mind that this phone is impermanent. It's not going to be with me permanently. So now I went outside again without the phone. And I didn't have the fear, but there was definitely some agitation. There was some irritation in the mind. It just didn't quite feel comfortable. And I needed to remind myself, hey, when you were a child, there was no such thing as mobile phones. You used to go out in the world without a mobile phone. Why can't you do it now? Right? So I needed to train my mind. So there was this bit of agitation. So again, I went around Chiang Mai. I did the different things that I was doing without the phone. And then when I came home, I didn't go right to the phone. I did some other things at home. And then about every 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, I did this occasionally. I think I did it maybe like 4, 5, 6 times. Right? So then I noticed I could go outside without the phone. And no big deal. There was no big deal without the phone. My mind was just as peaceful and joyful as it was when I was with the phone, as when I was away from the phone. But then about 2 months later, I accidentally left the phone at home again. I was driving down the road again. I reached for the phone. It wasn't there. And I was like, oh, well, I just kept on going. No fear, no agitation, no irritation, no nothing. And this confirmed for me that the craving had been eliminated, that there was no more craving, desire, attachment for this phone. Because in that situation where I wasn't thinking that I was not going to have the phone, I thought I had the phone. When I reached for it, it wasn't there. There was no fear. There was no nothing, no agitation. And I knew that I had eliminated this craving. So then you just repeat this over and over and over and over again. The mind wanted that phone to be permanent, but I needed to put the mind in the situation that it didn't want to be in, which was be outside with the phone. Because the mind's going to be obsessive trying to hold on to this phone, making it permanent. When in reality, this phone is impermanent. It's not possible to have this phone permanently. And then about a year after that, I accidentally dropped my phone on the ground and the whole screen shattered, right? I was like, well, that makes sense. The phone's impermanent, right? No agitation, no frustration at all. My wife had a second phone that she wasn't using. I was like, hey, can I use that phone? She was like, sure, here you go. So I started using her phone instead. I got rid of the other one because it was too expensive to fix it, and it was an older phone, so I didn't fix it. I just decided to use her phone instead, right? So I could see my mind had been liberated from this craving, because if the mind was craving for this phone to be permanent, when I dropped it and it broke, I would have been discontent. I would have been frustrated or agitated or annoyed. I'm sure you've experienced that at different times. That's because the mind's craving, it's attached, it's wanting this phone to be permanent. Of course, we put cases on our phone to try to make them less impermanent, but ultimately they're impermanent, right? So there can be a wise decision to put a case on it to try to protect it, but then you just know that, yeah, it's impermanent. You're either going to lose it, it's going to get stolen, you're going to drop it and it's going to break, or at the very least, it's just going to get old and stop working, right? That's what happened to my last phone. It just got really old and it doesn't really work anymore. This phone is impermanent. It's only a matter of time before you don't use it anymore. But if you crave it to be permanent, now you're going to be discontent when you experience impermanence. So if you're noticing your mind experiencing any discontentedness, that's the red light on the dashboard of your car. So the first step, you cut it off. You cut it off. You cut it off. You don't even think about what it is or what the attachment is. You just cut it off. It's just a response that you build into the mind. From doing your meditation, you just notice whenever the mind moves off, you cut it off, you cut it off, you cut it off. When it moves off the breath, you cut it off and cut it off. You get used to that and you practice your generosity. And then you move to step 2, look inward. What is the craving? If you have really deep, strong discontentedness, there might be more than one craving. Because in that situation with the phone, not only was I craving the phone to be permanent, but I was a little bit scared to be outside because I was thinking, what if something happens to me? What if I get in a car accident? What if I get a medical emergency? So there's a little bit of fear of death in there too. That craving was in there too, right? So I had to get rid of that craving. So there's usually more than one craving, particularly when you're first getting going in practice. There can be 3, 4, 5, 6 different cravings. The stronger your emotions, the more deeply held cravings and the more of them that you have. So you're going to need to identify all these different cravings. It's typically more than one. Then when you reflect and you identify what your cravings are, then you put a plan together to be able to put the mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have fear of death. You can actually put your mind in the situation. You don't have to die, but there's actually teachings that you can employ certain tools and techniques to put the mind in the situation without actually even dying. So if you guys have a fear of death, we can use that as one of the examples that we talk about. And then once you develop this plan, all the while doing breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity regularly, then you repeat this process for each incident of discontentedness. And where needed, reach out to your teacher and I will help you. So I'm going to help you here get started with this to learn how to develop this skill. If you guys here at the temple, if you'd like to share your incidents of anger or frustration or happiness or excitement or boredom or loneliness or things like this, you can say, here's the situation, here's the emotion that I felt, and I have no idea what my cravings, desires, attachments are. You could do that. Or you could say, here's the feelings, here's the situation, here's what I think the cravings are, but I'm not sure. And then we'll talk about it and I'll help you. I'll pretty much be asking you questions to be able to uncover in your mind what are the cravings, desires, attachments. So you guys here, you can share. Those of you guys online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put this into the comment section. Those of you guys in Zoom, I'd like to invite you to raise your hand electronically. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and that's a lot easier for me so I don't have to read the small print. For those of you guys that are here at the temple, when you use these mics, if you just press the gray button, the light's going to come on. You just wait a second and then you can talk, right? You don't have to hit the mic and you don't have to do all that kind of stuff. So the light, it just has a little bit of a delay. So when the mic's off, you just press the gray button, just wait a second, just be a little bit patient, and then it comes on. No big deal. Okay? So would somebody like to share? Somebody like to get some help to develop this? Yes, sir. You could use this mic if you like. I know it works for sure.
I don't even know where to start because I've been feeling extremely discontent my entire life.
Okay. Okay. Can you explain a certain situation where you've experienced discontentedness?
I was a chef for 15 years, and so like managing other people made me very discontent on a regular basis. And so like I think that's kind of carried over, even though I haven't been a chef for like 5 years, that just people's lack of showing up in all kinds of areas causes me to be discontent.
Okay. Can you give one specific situation where, as you were a chef, something that was happening and what you experienced?
Just things not showing up on time, like food orders or something like that, or people. I think I'm very time oriented, so when that would happen, it would cause distress.
Okay, so is this like when another chef is cooking an order, it doesn't come in time, or is this food coming from outside?
Mostly like an order or something, like if you ordered a whole truckload of food and you needed it to show up at a specific time and it didn't, something like that, or a person, needed them to show up at a specific time and they didn't.
Okay, perfect. So what do you think your mind is craving? What is it longing for, yearning for? What is the permanence that it's craving?
Probably just wanting to accomplish a task.
Okay.
And not being able to accomplish that task in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay, that's definitely part of it. Yep. The timing part. Is it possible for every truckload of food to show up at exactly a certain time?
Absolutely not.
Because of impermanence. You know that now. You didn't know that then, right? Is it possible for every single person to show up to work at a specific time?
Nope.
But the mind wants that. That's what the mind's longing and yearning and wanting. So that's your craving. So this scenario that I'm describing, this is something that you can do for probably a good 80-90% of the different cravings, desires, attachments. For some of them, like the one that you're just identifying, if you were still in that role, you wouldn't have to do anything to put together a plan to create this, because it's going to happen. Trucks are going to show up that are not on time. Employees are going to show up that aren't on time. So you're going to be exposed to that. But at that time, you didn't have the breathing mindfulness meditation and the generosity on board to be able to help you. You didn't have the wisdom to understand the universal truth of impermanence. You didn't know to cut things off and cut things off and cut things off. So what you would do in this scenario is you would definitely do number one. Whenever discontentedness is arising, you would cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. You would definitely do number two. You would reflect and you would look inward and figure out, what am I craving? I'm craving to get a task accomplished within a certain time frame. I'm craving for people to show up at a certain time. I'm craving for these trucks to show up at a certain time. None of these things are going to happen in the same way permanently, because they're all impermanent. So you can reflect on that, number two, and you can see what your cravings are. But then in terms of putting a plan together, in this particular scenario, you won't have to do anything, because the trucks are going to show up that they're not on time. They're going to show up. The people, the employees are going to show up not on time. So you're going to get a chance to expose the mind to that if you were still in that same role. So you're going to need to let go of this timeliness. I know that you come from American culture, which I also grew up there. In America, I don't know if you were taught this way. I was taught if you're 5 minutes early, you're already late. Is that what you were taught?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is conditioning of the mind. The mind's been conditioned this way based on your surroundings and based on your culture, that it's very punctual, and people will bolt through town. They will run to their car. They will weave through traffic to get somewhere 5 minutes early because they don't want to be late. And this is ingrained into the culture and into people's minds, where you need to be able to understand, like, okay, I'm going to make wise decisions to be on time, but there's going to be occasional situations where you can't be on time. So like you'll notice, like when I come here to the temple, I'm pretty much here every single morning, 8 o'clock, 8:15, 8:30, no problems. We start class right at 9. And then when we go out to lunch, I come back, and we're starting class right on time pretty much. But there's some rare occasions, and you were here for the retreat, where we went away on an excursion and we came back like 30 minutes late and we weren't able to start class. And in that situation, I was just able to message some of the students that were here at the temple, and I let them know to come on in, get things set up, and we'll be there shortly. And you need to maintain your calmness and composure, your evenness of temper in those situations where things aren't happening based on a certain time frame that you have in your mind. You're going to need to let go of the expectation that these things should be there at a certain time, but then make decisions to try to get those things to happen and occur. But don't put pressure on yourself or pressure on others. Just politely work towards that particular goal, realizing that in some situations, these things aren't going to happen at exactly a certain time because of impermanence.
I think the last thing to add to that is it's not even necessarily about the thing not happening on time. It was me knowing that it wouldn't happen and then getting frustrated at that when it didn't happen, sort of thing. And that applies to all kinds of stuff, just getting frustrated when a situation doesn't work out how you want it to, even though it's happened so many times before you may have learned.
Yeah. One of the things you might think about doing is this word want and expect. That's that craving, desire, attachment. What you learn is that it's very unwise to have these wants and these expectations. Instead, you work towards goals, objectives, or interests. So, like, for example, if I was working in that field and I was a chef and I was ordering food, and the truck drivers were saying, "Hey, what time do you want the food to arrive?" I would say, well, I would like the food to arrive at 2 p.m. because we're going to be getting prepared for our dinner crowd. And if you could be here around 2 p.m., that would be ideal. The closest to 2 p.m., the better. But I understand things can happen. So if you could be here at 2, that would be wonderful, right? That would be the way that I would discuss it with them, rather than saying, I want you to be here at 2, or I expect you to be here at 2. Because right away, you're telling your mind that strong want, that expectation, and now you're kind of setting yourself up for discontentedness, because it's not possible for this truck to absolutely show up at 2 o'clock because of traffic, because of flat tires, because of red lights, because of any number of things. Impermanence is going to happen along the way, and it would be next to impossible, or it would be impossible for every single truck to show up at exactly the same time or at the time that you've designated. So if you start using language like, well, I would prefer that you show up, at 2 o'clock, or it would be best if you showed up at 2 o'clock, or my goal is for you to arrive at 2 o'clock. These are the kind of words that will help you to not have the craving, desire, attachment. And then when you're talking to other people, they will actually feel more comfortable with that too, because they won't feel pressured. Whereas if you, as a chef or a boss, if you're like, hey, I expect you to show up at 2 o'clock, or I want you to show up at 2 o'clock. Whoa, it's like so strong. It's so pressure, so demanding, right? So you'll find that you'll actually be more successful with people and interacting with people when you use those kinds of words like I prefer, I would like you to, it would be best, I have an interest for you to accomplish it this way. Would it be possible for you to show up at 2 o'clock? These are much better words to create harmony in your relationships with the people around you. And you just need to get used to using those, because right now the mind's not used to doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great example. Anyone else? Yeah, you can ask questions or share in this example. You guys online, you guys are welcome to share as well. You guys are all part of the class.
Thank you, David. This is very, very practical, helpful. But right at the start, there's this decision, and there needs to be a decision here that I'm going to get rid of these cravings or try to work. It's quite a big decision because if I have a craving, I know, it's actually speaking, that if I indulge in satisfying that craving, there'll be a moment of sensation, normally positive, frankly speaking, whether it's chocolate or sexual misconduct. And then your reference to this is about the fact we are craving permanence. But there seems from other things you've said that there's a... So therefore there's one way of looking at it is that therefore satisfying these cravings is a loser's game. You're never going to win it. Mm-hmm. You're never going to win it. So that's a very profound reason to have a crack at trying to remove these cravings. Mm-hmm. But it's also, it can be sort of something to let it go a bit. Well, you know, I'm around a long time and we can even do a rebirth here or two, and I might let it go for a while, mm-hmm. indulge in it for a while. Mm-hmm. But then the other aspect of it is gamma, that if I indulge in this craving, it's going to produce negative outcomes. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of at the stage where to tackle some of these cravings, it's mainly about the negative gamma aspect that is the motivation, like knowing that if I eat that or do that, that is going to have, you know, so there's wisdom there that I know that that's going to produce negative things. So I'm just trying to, I guess the thing is that, is it, you know, why should I make the effort to remove these cravings is one, because it's impermanent. Mm-hmm. Also this other aspect of it's producing gamma. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the way that I looked at this is I became so disinterested in those conditioned feelings, and I valued the peacefulness and the joy so much that I wasn't interested in indulging in this temporary pleasantness, because I knew that as soon as I did that, I was going to ultimately end up in the painful feelings. Because as soon as you allow the mind to get the conditioned pleasant feeling, it's only a matter of time before you get the conditioned painful feeling. So for example, just using one of your examples, like chocolate, if you allow your mind to have a craving, desire, attachment where you just want it so badly, you'll get those pleasant feelings when you get it, but you're not going to be able to get it permanently. You're going to sometime go into the store and it's not there and it's not available. And now it's only a matter of time before you get the painful feelings. So you need to value the peace, value the unconditioned happiness, the unconditioned joy that is permanent, rather than going for this temporary thing, this temporary, whether it's 1 minute, whether it's 1 hour, whether it's 1 day, whether it's 1 week, whether it's 1 month, or whatever it is, that those pleasant feelings will be there due to that particular craving. It's only temporary. So therefore, it's ultimately displeasing. So valuing this permanent peace, this permanent happiness, this permanent joy is the motivator that's like, yeah, why would I do that? Because I know that that thing is going to lead me over here to the pain, and I don't like that pain. Sure, that pleasant thing feels good, but it's ultimately going to lead to the pain, and why would I keep doing this to myself? It's kind of like stabbing yourself with a knife. You know, you wouldn't be interested in doing that most likely. So as long as you keep going towards the cravings that are producing these pleasant feelings, it's only a matter of time before you end up in the painful feelings. So valuing the peace and the joy and the happiness can be the motivator towards eliminating those cravings, desires, attachments.
Oops. Yeah, thank you. That helps close the loop. Yeah, why on earth am I making this effort? Mm-hmm. Because I know now. I didn't know before. Mm.
Yeah, that's the wisdom, right? That these conditioned pleasant feelings are ultimately dissatisfying because they're only temporary. They're only temporary. And as long as you keep allowing your mind to go down that path, it's going to keep ending up in the painful feelings. It's only a matter of time. So it's learning how to navigate this world without craving, desire, attachment, because there's no harm in eating chocolate. If you like to eat chocolate, but you can learn how to do it without a craving, desire, attachment. Or the example I gave yesterday with the new job, like chasing after the new job, you get so excited, you get so happy, you get this brand new job. 3 years later, you get laid off, and now you're feeling the painful feelings. There's no harm in having a job. You're going to need to have a job. Well, you're retired now, I think, but you need to have a job, right? But learning how to do it as a goal, as an objective or an interest. The problem isn't the job. right? And the cause of the problem isn't the job. The problem isn't the chocolate. The problem isn't the cause of the chocolate. The problem isn't those trucks. The problem isn't those people who are coming in late. That wasn't the problem. The problem is the conditioned feeling. And now the cause of that problem is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. So it's learning how to navigate the world using things like some examples I just gave you that would help in that situation if you were ever in that situation again, where you can train your mind to understand, like, okay, if I chase after these things, sometimes I'm going to get them and I'm going to get pleasant feelings, but other times I'm not, and I'm going to get painful feelings. So let me come to this middle where I can just gradually work towards ordering these trucks, ordering this food, looking for it to show up at a certain time, realizing that sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Let me talk to these employees, try to encourage them to show up on time, knowing that the vast majority of them probably will, but in some rare situations they won't, and understanding that this is impermanence. Whereas if we crave one particular thing, you can only be happy if that particular thing occurs, and you're just setting yourself up to fail in that situation. Yep, you're welcome. All right, anybody else would like to share their examples? Yes, ma'am. Oh, we got a question online? Okay. This is Max. All right, go ahead, Max.
Hello, sir. I'm listening on YouTube and thought I'd pop in and ask a question. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the term of catastrophizing. Basically, like, you think of the worst situation and, it kind of builds on itself or whatnot. But one example I can give is like my house, needs repairs, and then I, basically the mind starts to feed into it and it builds and builds on itself. Oh, will I be able to make enough money to afford to do these repairs, and how, when, now something else is going to break and something else is going to need work, and how can I guess, stop the, that building up and building up of, the discontentedness as it builds up so quickly sometimes.
Yeah, it's all these same things that we're describing here, Max, is the breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity is the generalized training that you're going to need to employ. But then in those situations where you come across something that's wrong with the house, for example, like maybe the plumbing is leaking or maybe the electric's not working, you need to just remind yourself, well, of course this is occurring. This is impermanent. Of course the pipe's leaking. Of course the electric's flickering. Of course there's a tile broken. Of course there's a glass that's going to break or a bowl that's going to break. This is all impermanence. So each time one of these things happen, if you're noticing any discontentedness arising, the first thing you do is cut it off and let it go. And now you reflect and look inward. What is the mind craving? I'm craving for this house to be permanent. I'm wanting the plumbing to be permanent when it's impermanent. I'm wanting the electric to be permanent when it's impermanent. I'm wanting that bowl to be permanent when in fact it's truly impermanent. And now with these particular examples, they're going to happen, right? You're not going to be able to induce these kinds of things. If I was living with you and I knew that you had these kind of cravings, I would probably go over to the circuit breaker box and turn off the circuit breakers every once in a while and kind of induce this for you. But you're not going to be able to do that on your own. But you live in this impermanent world. You're going to experience some difficulties with the plumbing, with the electric. But it doesn't have to be difficult, right? When these things are occurring, the mind oftentimes looks at that as the problem. Like, oh, I've got this problem, the plumbing isn't working, or I've got this problem, the electric isn't working. No, that's not the problem. That's just impermanence. The problem is that the mind is discontent. That's the problem. And the cause of that problem is that the mind is craving for the plumbing to be permanent, or it's craving for the electric to be permanent, or it's craving for this plate or this bowl to be permanent. So you're going to need to see all these things as impermanent and not craving for them to be permanent, and don't see them as the problem. The different impermanent situations that you're experiencing, that's not the problem. That's just impermanence. You're going to be experiencing that the rest of your life. You can't avoid that. But you can eliminate your cravings, no longer wanting it to be permanent, so that then you won't experience the true problem, which is the discontentedness arising in the mind. Make sense?
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Pleased to help you, Max. Thank you for coming into Zoom. So helps my old eyes not have to read the Facebook and YouTube comments. Although I can expand them, I can increase them. Karen, I see your comment in Zoom. Very pleased to help you as well. Thank you for coming to join and learning the teachings of the Buddha. Is there anyone else who would like to share a certain situation that you're challenged with, that you would like to discover what your cravings, desires, attachments are? No? Nobody like to share? Okay. You seem like you'd like to share. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Sometimes the mind is shy, right? This is part of the craving, desire, attachment, that the mind wants to be perceived in the world a certain way, so that shyness arises. So when you notice that shyness, what should you do? Cut it off and let it go, right? Then you reflect inward. What is it that the mind wants here? Oh, it wants to be quiet. That's what it wants. It wants to be permanently quiet, not be in the public view. So you put a plan together. Number 3, you put the mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in, which it doesn't want to share publicly. It doesn't want to talk publicly. So you put the mind in that situation, and then you train the mind. There's nothing to be afraid of. You can remain peaceful. You can remain joyful even when you share. So if you're noticing shyness arising, cut that off, let it go, reflect and see what it is. What this is that personal existence view that we talked about yesterday. That personal existence view where the mind has a certain self-image, a certain self-identity, that it wants to be perceived in the world a certain way. That's the pollution. That's the craving. It's clinging to this body or this mind, wanting to be perceived a certain way. And now you put it in the situation that it doesn't want to be in, which is sharing publicly and talking. And this is what will help you to overcome that. So wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for seeing that. Yeah, I think I was giving into my shyness, but there was a little bit more of confusion of like, I don't really know how to ask this question. I don't really know how to phrase it. And my perfectionism, if I don't have the exact words, I'll keep it to myself, but I'm sure you can help navigate that. So for me, my frustration is also very time related, I think. And I've noticed this craving my entire life. I have ADHD and I think really fast. And I'm also like very math, science based. I come to conclusions very quickly and I can perform tasks very quickly. It's great. I stopped taking medication for it years ago, but like being a machine in the workforce, being able to make all these like micro decisions and stuff all the time. Like it was a superpower, as well as something I noticed that has lingered in it being a reoccurring frustration. And the frustration, I think, is with efficiency. Like the fact I can pull up and find any information really quickly, or I can put together a plan or a schedule, or I think it manifests in my life as like what people would say the symptom of like not being able to delegate. But I think it's even before that, it's just that if I get frustrated, you know, in my past with people not being as quick or efficient, I would just happily, with love and kindness, do it myself. And I think that's come with me not being able to share responsibilities with people. And it's not out of distrust. It's not out of anything besides, you know, I want to be able to do that more. It's not like I have a problem delegating or working with people. I just think through my frustration of efficiency, I end up like putting a lot more on myself and not being able to share with others. So that frustration, and I don't let it get towards like my actions or the way I interact with the world, but still years later of noticing this and practicing these exercises, I still have that all the time. It's like, well, I can find this out on Google Maps in 2 seconds. I might as well, like I still notice those coming up all the time. So even if I don't put it into action in my life, it's still there all the time. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're craving here?
Time management, efficiency. I don't really know. That's, I guess.
Okay. Are you craving for everyone to do things the same way as you?
Yeah.
Is that what you're wanting? You'd say yes?
I would say it doesn't feel like a ecstatic yes for me. It feels more like wanting to share the experience with someone, because I enjoy that people do things different than me a lot. Like I think that there's such a mesh of people bringing that kind of stuff to the table, and I really value that in my life. I wouldn't try to like eliminate that, but I do want to, I guess, relate to people more through them doing things similar to me. So in that context, yes.
Yeah, because one of the things you said is that you do things efficiently, and it bothers you when other people aren't being able to do it as efficiently as you.
Which in the workforce you can quantify, but in day-to-day life, who's to say what's efficient, what's the outcome, what we're working towards? So, yeah.
Right. So it sounds like to me that the mind has a craving, an expectation, a want for other people to do it in the same way, where as the mind becomes more and more enlightened, it becomes more awake, and there's not as much pollution there, and ultimately no pollution at all, you'll be doing things very efficiently. You'll be doing things very well. And there'll be other people around you that'll be really struggling because their mind's polluted and they're having difficulties. They don't have concentration. They have a lack of focus, right? And what you would like to do is have compassion, concern for their misfortune. You'd like to have loving kindness, which is a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And if you understand that not everybody can do things the same way as you, then you can develop the patience to just let them to do things whatever the way that they need to do it. And then you're there to support them, encourage them, and help them and advise them and give them suggestions along the way as they need that. But if you crave for people to do things the same way as you, then when other people are doing things either slower than you or less efficient than you, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. You'll have the frustration. Whereas if you realize in permanence that it's not possible for everyone to do the same things as you in the same way as you, particularly as your mind becomes more awake, then people are going to be struggling. But by you providing guidance and suggestions, it empowers them to now get better at that thing. Where, like I remember yesterday, you were sharing at a break that you're a business owner, or at least you're involved in some businesses. Whereas if you just did everything yourself, your employees aren't building the skills to be able to do the things that they need to do, and it helps the company be more strong. So rather than like a boss always doing the same thing and not allowing their employees to cultivate the skill, then you're the only one that can do it. The company's kind of dependent, or the success of the company is contingent on having this boss do the work. Where what you would like to do is you would like to be able to empower other people, support them, and help them to develop the wisdom that they need so that they can do these tasks too, all the while realizing that they're probably never going to do it quite as well as you, and that's okay. But at least they're able to do it to some level of proficiency. That way the company's not dependent on you. So if you're outside the company, or if you go on a 1 month holiday, the company can still sustain itself and it can still be very successful even without you. But you're there to provide the guidance and the wisdom to help them. But if you have a craving for it to be done a certain way, that's where your frustration will come in. So this is actually another example. You guys have a bunch of different examples. This is another example where there's no plan that you can put in place here, because this is going to occur. You're going to be in situations. Although one thing you could do is where you don't want to delegate, where you want to hold on to this task yourself, is you can put your mind in the situation where it needs to delegate. Because I used to have this same situation too, where I would always want to do things myself. And then instead, I encouraged myself to delegate. Even though I knew it was going to take them longer and they weren't going to do it as well, I would still delegate it and I would still help them. And the first time they did it, it would be longer and it wouldn't be done as well. but I used it as a learning experience for them. And I used it as a learning experience for myself to learn how to delegate and guide. And then the second time I gave it to them, they did a little bit better. And I was able to guide them a little bit better. And then the third time, they did a little bit better, a little bit better. The fourth and fifth and sixth time, eventually, they didn't need me at all because they already knew how to do it. But if I never got to that first situation where I was delegating a task and I was comfortable to do that, I would have never got to the fifth or sixth time when they could actually do it completely without my involvement. Where the mind wants this thing done in a particular time frame, in a particular way, it'll be hesitant to delegate. So eliminating that craving can be just making sure that you do delegate and you don't hold back, and you see it as a learning process that this person is going to need to gradually learn it. Because when the way that you perform now a particular task, you didn't just do it that way from the very beginning. It took you gradual training to build up that to that point. But the way the mind works when it has craving is it wants it now. I want this thing now. And if you realize, well, hold on, it took me 4, 5, 6 times to gradually build up that skill to be able to do it. So that means it's going to take this other person the same thing. Now, let me just be patient so that it's not just me that's doing everything, but there's other people that can do it as well. And this is so key because like there was a business here in Chiang Mai that me and my son used to go to. We used to play mini golf at this little mini golf place. And there was this, at the mini golf place, they had a restaurant too, and they had really good food. And we would go there and we would order food, and then we would play mini golf, and then we would eat some more food, and then we would leave. Well, sometimes we would go there and they couldn't serve food because there was this one employee. She was the only one that knew how to cook out of all these employees. And I said to my son, I said, one day they're going to lose this employee and they're going to have to close their restaurant. Well, lo and behold, about a year later, we went there and they're like, oh, our employee left. She's no longer here. We can't serve food anymore. All we have is the mini golf, right? So if you build a business that's contingent on one person, even yourself, then when that person is removed, whether it's an employee or if it's a boss will come, or the business will come down to its knees because it's contingent on that. This is why I don't know if you guys spend time much going to stores and businesses here in Thailand, but like if you go to the equivalent of Home Depot or Lowe's here in Thailand is called Home Pro. Any one particular aisle, you'll see 2 or 3 employees that are working that particular aisle. The Thai business owners, they will put a whole lot of employees into their business so that there can be a lot of cross-training. We call cross-training, right? Because then if one employee is not there, then there's somebody else that has that wisdom and has that knowledge. So you're never interested in building a business that's just contingent on one person, including yourself. Oftentimes it feels good to be the center of attention, that I'm the only one that knows how to do this, and everyone in the company looks to me for this thing. I'm not saying that's the way you think, but some business owners think this way. They're like, yeah, I feel really great because I'm the only one that knows how to do this thing. Well, yeah, when you're sick and in the hospital, or if you get in a car accident and you're away from the business for 3 months or 6 months, your business is going to crash. So the best thing you can do is create a business in such a way that there's cross-training and everybody's learning. And that'll help you to develop your patience and get rid of this craving where you're wanting to hold on to these tasks and do them yourself. Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful. I think you hit the nail on the
I think your mic's not on.
Hello. So, yeah, I think that's very helpful. Traveling full time the past year and for the foreseeable future, I've had to change my business model drastically of being the person on site and hands on and everything. And I think my entire model was built around more like, consulting strategy. Very crucial to have me as a part of that. And I think that's, where I'm in the infancy of expanding beyond that. So I love always the links between personal and professional development. So glad that's coming up.
Yeah, definitely. There's actually business models out there. They talk about it like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Like phase 1 is just getting your business up and running and knowing how to do the work that you're doing. Like phase 2 is becoming proficient at it. You have lots of customers coming. Phase 3 is empowering other people to do the work that you do so that you can exit out of the business and you can go on holiday for a month or 2 or 3 or 4, and then your business can still operate, it can still run without you. that's where you would like to get to, is like phase 3, right? That would be the ultimate goal. So you can actually accomplish that the more you impart wisdom with others, and just realize that's part of the learning process. And your employees are going to feel better about it, because they're going to be building skills and abilities, and they're going to really like that you're empowering them and trusting them to run certain aspects of the business. I did this when I was a business owner. I would leave sometimes for a month and come to Thailand, and I would let the business run itself, but I knew that they could handle it. I would get back to America. I'd have like 3 hours of work after being away for a month. I'd just sign a couple of things, and that was it. It was like, hey, why'd I even come back? I could have did this by FedEx. I didn't even need to come back. So you can get your businesses to a point where you're in that phase 3, where it's essentially self-sufficient and it doesn't really need you to operate. You might just kind of provide some guidance here or there, but that takes, a certain amount of work to build up to that. But that's what you'd ultimately like to get to, because then you have freedom and you don't have to be watching over the business every moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any questions online either. So it's a little bit after 11:30. This is the group activity that we just did. This afternoon, I'm going to be teaching you guys the Brahma Viharas, which is cultivating healthy mental states, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are 4 healthy mental states that you're going to need to learn and cultivate in the mind to be able to antidote certain problems. I'm going to describe to you what these healthy mental states are. I'm going to describe to you what it's remedying, and then I'm going to teach you how to cultivate it. And this is where the Buddha gets the kind of reputation of being a doctor, because you can see certain symptoms in the mind, and then you can apply a prescription. And this is what's going to help you to be able to do that with these particular 4 healthy mental states. They remedy certain discontent feelings. Of course, it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings, and you need to eliminate that. But then you also need to bring in the wholesome quality. Remember right effort, where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating the wholesome quality. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that with these 4 healthy mental states. So now it's basically 11:40. So let's take an hour and a half lunch, which would bring it all the way around to, 12:40. Am I doing this math right? It'd be 1:10. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, 1:10. So we'll come back at 1:10, which is basically an hour and a half from now. Okay, so enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you guys then. Okay, be well. All you guys online, be well.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.